The restaurant had been designed to make people feel important the moment they stepped inside. The floors were marble polished to a mirror shine, the walls lined with dark wood and gold accents that whispered old money rather than shouted new. Soft violin music drifted through the air, just loud enough to remind diners that silence here was expensive. Every table was dressed in crisp white linen, every glass spotless, every server trained to smile without ever seeming familiar. Lena had learned that smile well. She moved between tables with practiced ease, balancing plates and bottles as if they were extensions of her own body. Friday nights were always like this, power dinners, quiet deals, men who spoke about millions the way other people spoke about groceries. She kept her head down, her voice polite, her movements efficient. Tips were better when you didn't stand out. Victor Hale stood out enough for everyone. He sat at the center table like a king holding court, jacket draped over the back of his chair, sleeves rolled just enough to show off a steel watch that caught the light every time he gestured. The men around him laughed too loudly at his jokes. The women smiled too carefully. He spoke in absolutes, the kind of man who had never been told no without consequences following. Lena had been assigned to his table by accident. The manager had hesitated, then nodded. "Just be careful," he'd whispered. She approached with the wine bottle, reading the label once more even though she already knew it by heart. Her grip was steady, her steps measured. Victor didn't even look at her when she began to pour, too busy finishing a story about firing an entire department because one man had challenged him in a meeting. "Told them excellence isn't a discussion," he said, smirking. "It's obedience." A chuckle went around the table. Lena adjusted the angle of the bottle. Someone at a nearby table bumped her elbow as they stood up. The motion was small, barely noticeable, but enough. A single dark drop slipped over the rim of the glass and splashed near Victor's cuff. The sound of it felt louder than it should have been. Victor looked down slowly, as if his body needed time to process the insult. His eyes narrowed. The conversation died instantly. "Are you kidding me?" he said. "I'm sorry, sir," Lena replied immediately, reaching for a clean cloth. Her voice was calm, controlled. "I'll take care of that." Victor stood halfway, chair scraping loudly against the marble. "Do you have any idea how much this shirt costs?" "Yes, sir," she said. "And I." He raised a hand, silencing her. He finally looked at her face then, really looked, and something in his expression shifted. Not anger anymore. Interest. The kind that made Lena's shoulders tighten almost imperceptibly. "I asked if you know who I am," he said. "I do," she answered. "Mr. Hale." That should have satisfied him. Instead, it seemed to amuse him. "Oh," he said with a short laugh. "So you know exactly who you just disrespected." "That wasn't my intention." "Intent doesn't matter," he snapped. "Competence does." People at nearby tables pretended not to watch, though no one missed a word. The manager hovered several steps away, frozen between intervening and knowing better. Victor leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to make the moment feel intimate, predatory. "People like you always make excuses. Clumsy hands, long hours, hard lives." He straightened, speaking louder again. "But you don't belong in rooms like this if you can't handle the basics." Lena slowly withdrew her hand with the cloth. Her fingers were steady, her breathing even. "I can replace the shirt," she said. "Or the bottle, whatever you prefer." He laughed openly now. "You couldn't replace the buttons on this shirt." A few of his companions shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. Victor tilted his head, studying her like a puzzle. "You're not shaking," he said. "Most people are shaking by now." "I don't see the point," Lena replied. That answer sparked something dangerous behind his eyes. "You think you're tough?" he asked. She met his gaze without challenge, without submission. "I think this conversation isn't appropriate." The words landed wrong. Victor's smile widened. "Tell you what," he said, spreading his hands. "Let's make this interesting. You and me. A little challenge." The manager stepped forward. "Sir, please." Victor waved him away without looking. "Relax. It's my building." Lena felt the attention of the entire room settle on her like weight. She was aware of every sound, every breath, every subtle shift in posture around her. She had worked too hard to keep her past buried, to let it surface now over a man like this. "A challenge?" she asked carefully. "I've got a private gym upstairs," Victor continued. "Ring, gloves, cameras off." He smiled, teeth bright and sharp. "You win, I'll write a check. 1 million, for you, no questions." The number rippled through the room in stunned silence. "And if I lose?" Lena asked. Victor's eyes gleamed. "You quit, right here. You get on your knees and apologize for wasting my time." The humiliation in that image was deliberate. Calculated. Lena looked at him for a long moment. In that pause, memories stirred, fluorescent lights, concrete floors, the sound of fists against flesh, the taste of blood and iron. She pushed them back down where they belonged. Around them, the restaurant waited. For tears, for fear, for compliance. Instead, Lena straightened her spine. "Deal," she said. A murmur swept through the diners. Victor barked out a laugh, loud and delighted, already picturing his victory. 5 minutes, he said, grabbing his jacket. "Don't run." Lena nodded once. As he strode toward the elevator, she picked up the fallen napkin from the floor and placed it neatly on the table, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened at all. The elevator ride up was silent, broken only by the soft hum of cables and the faint clink of Victor Hale's cufflinks as he adjusted them with casual confidence. He stood relaxed, shoulders loose, chin high, already playing the moment over in his head as a story he'd tell later, another reminder of who held power and who didn't. Lena stood a few feet away, hands folded loosely in front of her, eyes unfocused, as if she were thinking about something entirely unrelated to what waited above them. The doors opened onto the private gym, a space carved out of steel, glass, and money. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, its lights glittering like a promise made only to those who could afford it. The air smelled faintly of rubber mats and expensive disinfectant. In the center stood a pristine boxing ring, ropes taut, canvas unmarked. No posters, no trophies. Victor didn't need reminders of victories, he assumed them. He tossed his jacket onto a bench and rolled his shoulders. "I box twice a week," he said, more announcement than conversation. "Personal trainer, former national champ, keeps me sharp." Lena slipped off her shoes and set them neatly beside the ring. She folded her apron with care, smoothing the creases, then placed it on the same bench as his jacket. The contrast wasn't lost on him, her plain black fabric beside his tailored wool. "Rules?" Victor asked, stepping through the ropes. Lena followed, her movements unhurried. "Sure," she said. "You swing first." That answer made him grin. He bounced lightly on the balls of his feet, throwing a few lazy jabs into the air, enjoying the sound they made slicing through space. He circled her once, appraising. She looked smaller under the gym lights. Lighter, ordinary. He lunged without warning, a fast right aimed at her head, fueled by adrenaline and ego. She was gone before the punch landed. Victor felt his fist cut through empty air, his balance shifting forward just enough for him to notice, too late. Something slammed into his side, precise and brutal. Pain flared through his ribs, sharp enough to steal his breath. He stumbled, shock written across his face. Before he could reset, her left hook connected with his jaw. The world tilted. Victor hit the mat hard, the impact rattling his teeth. He sucked in air that wouldn't come easily, lungs burning. Somewhere distant, he heard his own grunt of disbelief. Lena stood a few steps away, feet planted, hands up but relaxed. Her breathing was slow, controlled. Her eyes were different now, focused, flat, utterly uninterested in spectacle. He pushed himself onto an elbow, anger flooding in to replace shock. "Lucky shot," he spat, forcing himself upright. "That all you've got?" She didn't answer. He charged this time, throwing a flurry meant to overwhelm, wide swings, power over precision. One grazed her shoulder, another brushed her sleeve, none landed clean. She moved like she'd memorized the space. A step back, a pivot, a short, devastating strike to his liver that folded him inward with a strangled sound. His knees buckled, sweat beaded instantly on his forehead. Lena caught his collar and guided him down rather than letting him fall, lowering him to the canvas with almost gentle control. It was the kindness that terrified him. He tried to laugh, but it came out broken. "What the hell are you?" he wheezed. "Someone you shouldn't have challenged," she replied. He swung from the mat, a desperate, ugly punch. She blocked it easily, then stepped inside his reach. Her knuckles pressed briefly against his throat, not striking, just reminding him how close she was. "I fought underground," she said quietly. 8 years, places where there are no refs. No rules, no doctors waiting with ice packs. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Victor's eyes darted to the ropes, to the windows, to the door, anywhere but her face. For the first time in a long time, the city below looked very far away. "I stopped," she continued, releasing him and stepping back. "Because I wanted peace. I wanted quiet. I wanted a life where my hands could serve instead of destroy." He staggered to his feet again, pride bleeding out of him with every breath. "You think this means anything?" He snapped weakly. "I could ruin you." She tilted her head slightly. You already tried. He rushed her one last time, a clumsy attempt born of panic rather than strategy. She ended it quickly, a clean combination, controlled and exact. The final punch landed with surgical precision, shutting off the lights behind his eyes. Victor collapsed, unconscious before he hit the mat. Lena stood over him for a moment, chest rising and falling evenly, listening to the echo of her own heartbeat. Then she stepped out of the ring, washed her hands at the sink, and dried them carefully. Downstairs, staff found her minutes later, tying her apron back on as if she'd only stepped away to refill water glasses. No one asked questions. No one needed answers. By morning, the headlines spoke in careful language. A private incident, a sudden resignation, an anonymous donation, $1 million, transferred to a fund supporting restaurant workers across the city. Victor Hale never mentioned the fight. Lena poured coffee for a new table, the city waking up beyond the windows. Her knuckles were bruised, her body sore, but her mind was calm. Some battles were about proving strength. Others were about remembering why you stopped fighting in the first place.